thanks so much for joining on Jonathan Griffith's channel. Are you the original carnivore bodybuilder? Is that the word on the street, sir? I'm pretty
Apparently
sure
so,
you're
yeah. Thank you for mentioning. I'm claiming that title. I think just because I'm the only person so far that's publicly spoke about competing as a carnivore bodybuilder. There probably are others out there, but it's all about for namesake, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you were like the first that I'd ever heard about, and so you were like a celebrity of mine for a few months, and then we exchanged podcasts.
Yeah,
Exchanged
now we're
podcasts.
good friends.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now we talk every day. Good stuff.
yeah, it's
Well,
cool.
cool. Yeah, whatever questions you guys got around meat and around muscles, this is the place to ask them. We got Jonathan Griffiths here, who is the original carnivore bodybuilder. I guess we could say we have Coach Mark, who has definitely way more experience than either of us do on the carnivore diet, and specializes more on the health side of things. And then you got me. I'm the athlete, the lab rat. I guess you could say that we're all athletes and lab rats to some degree too. But anyway, should we start kicking things off with the first couple questions we got?
That sounds good to me. Yeah, so we'll go first with Jerome Armstrong's question. So this was sent prior to the actual live recording, so this was the first one I got. And he asked, how do you know where the line is between effective volume and junk volume?
Ooh, good question. I was gonna ask him the same thing and say, let me know when you figure it out. It's a moving target. You know what I mean? I find it to be 10 times easier on the carnivore diet personally. I don't know if you guys can relate to it, but you become more and more in tune with your own body, with your own satiety signals, and even to the extent of your own training. Personally, that's what I've noticed. And so a lot of my training has been intuition the last couple months. I get to around 20, 25 working sets. I just like to, even if I feel like it's overtraining at that point, I just feel like anything under 20 working sets isn't really effective enough. Doesn't really feel like I did a workout, and I work out for mental health primarily, right? And then the physique is more of a byproduct. So I feel great after I've got an amount of volume done to where I feel like the muscles have been hit, but then there's a turning point where I just feel intuitively that anything else after that is going to be overkill. I think it's something that you need to, it's just like mindful eating, mindful training. It's something to where the more that you talk about it, even journal it, write your workouts down, your own body will tell you if you're overtraining or not. If you're having a hard time recovering from workout to workout and you're tight all the time, yeah, I mean that's probably a good indication that you're overtraining. If you're feeling starved, or if you feel like your muscle bellies aren't full enough, those are all signs of overtraining. Those are all indicators that I personally look for. But at the end of the day, it's a moving target. Personally, I kind of always try to be on the side of a little bit more. I like leaving the gym knowing that we definitely checked all the boxes and definitely hit every muscle that I went in there wanting to hit. Anything more than that is overkill. It's just completely unnecessary. So that's my thoughts. What about you guys?
I think that's an excellent answer. That pretty much summarizes what I'd say as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't change anything at all to that.
Perfect. Right, next question from Mats Anderson. He asked, how much ab work is necessary, weighted or non-weighted?
Good question.
Okay, so at the moment I'm doing a lot of weights ab training because I'm pretty much in an off season at the moment. So I want to get my abs quite thick. So this is the reason why I'm adding in like really heavy, not heavy resistance training, but I'm aiming for 15, 20 reps with like a bit of weight. I find that the more challenging I'm challenging my abs, challenging my core, that's where I'm going to get the deep cuts in my abs when I start leaning down, hopefully. I think that when you do non-weighted, yeah, you're going to see your abs. But if you want to see them nice and thick, I would personally make sure you're adding some cable crunches, some reverse curls with probably a dumbbell or something like that. You can do some cable swings to the sides to work the obliques. But yeah, I'm a big fan of doing weights. When it comes to like body weight training, it's good. I think it's only good like if you're into like plyometrics or something, that kind of stuff. I think it's good for that. But like for body weight, No, I'd focus more on weight training. What do you guys think?
I must admit, I don't really do much, if any, ab training in the off season. It depends on your abdominal structure. So if you've got quite a strong, quite a lot of strong definition in your abs, and when you are in shape, I don't think a lot of ab training is necessary. This talk is specifically about like the appearance, the aesthetic appeal. I think the ab muscle, the transverse abdominis, it's more important keeping that tight and sucked in. So, for example, if you look at Colt's pictures when he's posing on stage, he has a tight midsection. I think that adds more to the aesthetic than having a denser midsection. Of course, then if you have a tiny waist anyway, you've got no definition in your abs, you might as well do some weighted stuff and try and eke out all the abdominal development you can possibly get. That's pretty much all I've got to say on it earlier.
That's awesome, guys. I 100% agree with both of you. I just wanted to add one thing too. Matt, I know that you're working through some injuries, pal. So some of those exercises that Mark said might be kind of challenging for you. A real good practical one to add in addition to whatever those ones that you can do would be a stomach vacuum. To Jonathan's point, he was kind of going there with a narrow waist thing. That's something that's helped me. I don't know if it's helped to bring in my waist any tighter. I mean, probably not. Some people say that it does, but there's no science that I'm aware of that says that that's possible. But it's helped me to control them better and to pose them better and to, and I guess display a smaller waist because of the breathing exercises. So I guess it's more of an athletic angle at it too. And your abs are just like any other muscle group, they need to be trained both ways so that you don't get muscle imbalances. So if you're training in a way that's pushing them out, right, which is like 99% of ab exercises, having something to where you suck your abs all the way in, just Google stomach vacuum. The way that I like to do it is I think about exhaling every single speck of of air from my body, and I think about pulling my belly button like through the back of my spine. So that's something that you want to do on an empty stomach. You can do it like first thing in the morning or every time you go to the bathroom or whatever, and try to bring in your waist as narrow as you can for as long as you can. And you might last 15 seconds, you might last 30 seconds, and then instead of progressive overload, then every single week just try to last like 5 seconds longer.
Perfect.
Yep.
Excellent. This is the last question I've received. I'm going to Colt's ones. So Matt's also asked, for shoulders, how often should you hit isolation versus compound movements for mass?
I'm really curious as to what you guys say on this because, I mean, personally, I feel like I'm always overtraining my shoulders, but it keeps them full, and it's helped them to catch up to other muscle groups that for me are just further ahead. I don't have like a pro chest by any means, but my chest is like my strongest body part. So I'm hitting chest for probably 5 sets a week total. I mean, like just barely touching it. But if my shoulders can move, they're getting hit.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
So I'd be the same, but I'd be more of a high frequency guy when it comes to like shoulder training. So I would try and get them in probably maybe if my shoulders are lacking, I would try and get them in about at least 3 or 4 times a week, but I wouldn't overtrain them. I'd probably do, say, 2 exercises max on the shoulders. Maybe one day I'll focus more on side laterals. Maybe another day focus more on the front delts, another day focus on rear delts. So, for example, I might do one day a shrug. Another day I might focus more on rear laterals to the side, probably frontal raises. And then when I'm doing like an incline bench, I won't have it up too high, just probably at a 90-degree angle, because I know I'm hitting the front, to pretty much the front of the shoulder. So I find that now I'm not an expert by any means when it comes to shoulder when I have massive shoulders, but I've always found that when I work with clients that they get the best shoulder development when they train them more frequently. It's the same with arms. Like everybody keeps on asking me, like, how do you grow your arms? And I always say, like, train them more. Same with your calves, just train them more. But instead of training the muscle, like instead of training the muscle with like both sides, train them individually. So when it comes to arm training, and especially with delts, one day just focus on like one one side, maybe on the other side as well, focus on one side, and just do that pretty much through the whole training. Another day, then you can just focus on compound lifts. So you could do, like, say, shrugs. You could do deadlifts. Deadlifts are great for the back of the shoulders. You could do, like, a military press. These would be all, like, big, massive compounds, but I wouldn't add all them in one training session. I would only put in one. Let's say if you're doing a push session and you're focusing mainly on shoulders, I would only have one shoulder exercise, which would be a compound movement, and then the rest of it then would be all isolation work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, great advice for both of you.
I like
Probably just outline what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm doing about 4 sessions per week: a push, pull, arms, calves, then thigh session. On my push session, I believe I'm doing one isolation movement for the side delts, one compound movement for the shoulders, so it's a shoulder press effectively, whatever feels safe and comfortable on that given day. Then I'm moving into either a chest fly or a chest press of some kind. That'll also be incline, as in also target the front delts. I'm more focused at the moment on targeting my front delts because I've actually neglected them for well over a decade. I've actually probably never really done shoulder press that much. I've always focused on doing the sides and rears. Now I'm at a different point that most people are at, where I have to develop my front delts more.
Yeah, it's like the opposite problem. That's like the opposite problem that 99% of people have. That's funny.
Yeah, with most people, it's the rear delts inside that need to build up. Yeah. As for frequency, you know, you can do it once a week or you can do it twice every 8 or 9 days. I think somewhere between that's about right. So, you know, once and twice a week is pretty good. The more intense your workouts are, the longer you'll find that you'll need to recover. The higher level of intensity that you're applying to your shoulder workout, also the more rest you'll need to recover as well. So if you're doing true muscular failure, at least concentric muscular failure, then yeah, you're going to be doing maybe one session a week. If you're then doing that with lots of volume, it might be one every 8 or 9 days. That's a rough guess. I mean, I know people that do vast varieties of frequencies. I'd listen to the guys and just follow your own body's intuition. If you're not too sore and you're making progress with each session, then carry on doing as you are, then adjust as time goes on. So what we want to try and get across in this sort of podcast is be intuitive with your own body, listen to your body, track progress where you can, and train safely and effectively.
Yeah. I want to add 2 things before we move on to the next question too, if that's all right. Hey, Matt, sorry, I see now that you're asking more about isolation versus compound and whether you should be focusing on more isolation or more compound moves. And the answer, I'm sure that the other guys would agree, is to spend most of your time on compound moves. But there are there's one isolation move that every bodybuilder has to have in their workout plan, and that's a side lateral. I would recommend using it with using plates because you can cross over at the bottom and pick a weight that you can fail around 10, 12 reps, and then get another 6 or 7 reps using a little bit of glutes too, so you can push past failure on that. 3 sets of that once a week. That'll make sure that you're nailing the side deltoid. There's 3 deltoid heads, as you know, bro, and that side deltoid. There's no other exercise that isolates it, just like a good old fashioned dumbbell side lateral. That one, and then just make sure you're isolating the rear delts. You can get away with building your chest without isolation moves. You can get away with building your back without isolation moves for the most part, but like your side delts and rear delts, compound moves just don't really cut it. You really have to make it a habit to regularly be doing a side lateral or a bent over lateral or a face pull. Make sure you're hitting your rear delts too, and you know, you can get your front delts in through a variety of compound moves. But those side and rear delts, those 2 exercises, those are 2 that you really want to make sure that you're doing.
Perfect. Well explained. Very good. This is Mark's question, I believe. So, question from unknown user: back training, stiff, dead, pulled from the floor, or stop at the knee? What do you guys think?
Okay, so this is a message I got from John earlier on. So he was asking me, like, because he sees me in the gym quite often, pulling weight from the ground. I've always been a fan of, like, if you want to get a really, really thick back, you pull the weight from the ground. That's the way I was trained. That's the way like when I used to play rugby, the guys used to always say to me, pull that weight off the ground as hard as you can. And to me, that's where my spinal erectors got really, really thick, really, really thick. And I've seen a lot of people basically question saying that it's the wrong way to do it. People are saying to me, look, you just need to go like just past the knee and go straight back up. The reason why I'm against that is because when you go down that low, you're putting an awful lot of pressure on your lower back in that basically that static position as you go down to the bottom. Whereas when you put it on the ground, you can set your legs in a position to drag that weight off the ground as fast as you can. You can't do that when you're going down to your knee, because what's happening is that load is pulling you towards the floor. So you're going to put an awful lot of strain on your lower back if you continue doing that going forward. So what do you guys think?
That's excellent. My I guess the first red flag that I would see is why is this gentleman using stiff leg deadlifts for back? I could be wrong, but I've always classified that as a hamstring dominant exercise and maybe a glute exercise, depending on your genetics and kind of how your glutes are tied in. And so deadlifts are called deadlifts because you pick it up off the floor dead. It's not a bounce off the floor lift, it's a deadlift, right? It's not a snap your hamstrings by stopping at the knee lift. It's a deadlift, right? Romanian deadlifts, okay, that's targeting the glutes, and that's when you slowly lower it until it's kind of around the knees. It doesn't really matter where the bar goes. You just want to lower the bar until your glutes are 100% stretched out. And that's when you, excuse my language, not to be graphic, but that's when you act like you're trying not to fart and squeeze your glutes together. And then that makes a glute exercise. Stiff leg deadlifts are more hamstring dominant because they stretch out the entire hamstring at the bottom, which you'll feel more so than the glutes, or at least I do. And then, but I don't like to lock out on stiff leg deadlifts. If I lock out, then that's when the glutes hit. If I'm trying to target my hamstrings, then I try to keep the bar pretty low without locking it out at all. For back training, just a good old fashioned, and personally, I don't do this anymore. And I probably won't do deadlifts ever again. Because I spent years and years and years and years doing this, and it got me some herniated discs. There were days that I couldn't get out of bed, but at the end of the day, nothing put muscle on my back more than conventional deadlifts. I have as thick of a back as I think I ever really want to have, and so I don't really see any reason to go back and do more conventional deadlifts, knowing that it's probably going to lead to some sort of inevitable injury at some point, whether it manifests itself in the form of a snap or a freaking another disc starting to work its way out or something. For the time being, my back is plenty thick enough, and I've been able to maintain it with a number of other exercises. So for whatever that's worth, hope that helps on and sheds, I guess, another angle.
Yeah, and I just add in there, like I'm a fan of conventional deadlifts as well. But the reason why I like to do the stiff deadlift for the back is pretty much the knee action. So we know when it comes to conventional, there's a slight bend in the knee. Whereas when you're doing a stiff deadlift, you're keeping your legs in a stationary position, and you're pulling the weight off the ground from your back. So you're going straight down. There's no movement. All that's movement is you will work the hamstrings, but it's mainly spinal flexion on the way up. So you're driving the back forward. You're driving the back pretty much forward on the way up. And as you come up, it's like a lat spread. So you grab the bar. It's going to be like a semi-wide grip. And as you come up, you're pushing your shoulder blades forward, and you're trying to get that lat spread at the very, very top. Then you're going straight back down into that position, and you're trying to pull yourself up and get a lat spread at the top. When it comes to hamstrings, I'm a fan of the conventional deadlift, but I wouldn't go down all the way down to the ground. I'm only going to go down until I feel the stretch in the hamstring, and then I'm going to come up and I'm going to drive the hip forward. But I'm not, again, like what Colt says, I'm not going to lock out. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to just push the glute. We're trying to push the hip forward. So what I would usually do when I'm training clients, because they usually get this wrong, is I'll usually wrap bands around the machine, and I'll literally tie them into the machine, and I'll say, as you come up, I want you to push that band forward. So there's the connection right there. So you can see that what they're doing is they're not locking out at the very, very top. So when they lock out at the very, very top, they're taking the tension off the muscle. We don't want that. So we want to stay forward a small bit, and then if anything, you're pushing the glutes forward and not the back.
Wow, that's brilliant, dude. Hey, when you fly over here, can you teach me that, and can we make a video on that?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that. That's freaking awesome. Thanks for explaining it that way. That was really cool.
Well, I have one of the girls training now on Saturday. What I'll do is I'll set it all up, and I'll tag you two guys in. What I think Jonathan may have seen it, but it's literally you tie a band around a machine, and what you do is you stand the girl into it, and as they come up, it's literally the band is fighting the resistance against you. So what you're doing is you're trying to push the resistance back into the bands. So as you come up, you're pushing the band forward, and as you push the band forward, you're feeling all the tension on your glutes. All right, and there's no lockout at all, because if you lock out at the very, very top, that's it. The tension is gone from the muscle altogether. So if you do that on the very, very first rep, straight away you feel the muscle working. Number two, it's like, oh my God, this feels really good. Number three, oh, this is really, really good. You know what I mean? Same when I'm doing, like, let's say if I'm trying to work the inner quads, or the outer quads, I'll always put a small band around the client's legs. I'll keep the legs together. So that means they can't push that leg. They cannot push that leg out. So when they put their legs up in the platform, their muscles are already contracting, because what's happening is that band is tight, and they have to move it like this. So you can imagine the band is trying to push them back in. So automatically in that position right there, they're under tension. The whole thing is under tension. So when they go into that leg pressing machine, their outer quads are under extreme tension all the way through the exercise.
And it brings in all those stabilizer muscles too, right?
Yeah, and then
otherwise dormant. Okay.
Yeah, and then if you want to add more resistance, you can add a bigger band and wrap it around the whole leg extension. Okay, and then what will happen is, we know that a lot of people focus on as you push the weight up, but a lot of people miss out on the concentric part of the weight. So when you actually wrap a band around that band is actually going to push you right down to the bottom, and you're fighting against that all the way through the set.
Brilliant.
Cool stuff. I think you guys both provided very good rationale for lower back training in regards to pulling from the floor. I think the caveat I'd give myself, which is perhaps a bit contradictory, is that if I pull from the floor, my body won't let me. So I'm injured. So me extending my lower back in that position is very dangerous. So I wouldn't do that, lift that way. So I'd probably be more inclined to do a lower weight, probably more repetitions, and focus on the top portion of the movement. But I think, as Mark rightly said, make sure your setup's right, regardless of whether you're pulling from the floor or from your knee. So make sure your hips are in the right position, your grip's even. So I see a lot of people with the bar like that, all over the shop. Things that people seem to miss for some reason. And emphasize the pullback of the scapula at the top as well, because that adds a bit to the movement, which is often missed, I think. But yeah, I'm definitely not an authority to talk about deadlifts. I very rarely do them. So I can't really add much to that. Yeah.
Oh, hey,
and can I just,
Mark,
can I just add one? Can I just? No, go ahead, Cole. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just gonna tell you, Mark. Something I've been doing for stiff leg deadlifts has been actually supinating my wrist too. I don't know if you've ever done that, and I know that this kind of contradicts what I just said earlier, but I've never really viewed stiff leg deadlifts as being a back exercise. But I have noticed that supinating my wrist, you have to use straps to do it, obviously, otherwise the bar rolls out of your hands. But I get way better lower lat activation, like where they tie in above your pelvis bone. Like you can feel it engage more. So I kind of feel like it's buy one get one free. Yeah.
Yeah. And no, I was just gonna say, when it comes to back training, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this before. Is a lot of people will pretty much stop the bar at the hip, and they'll do this like short range of motion, and they'll put an awful lot of weight on each side, and then they're just lifting the weight up like a shrug. That's not doing anything for your back at all. So I can't really explain it, but they literally have the bar literally at their belly button, and they're just lifting her up. It's like a shrug. I've seen a lot of people do it, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, and you can see they're just working pretty much their traps. There's no spinal flexion there whatsoever. So if you are going to do it, I'd say just make sure the bar is literally probably at your knee height or just below it.
Cool.
Perfect. Right, we get to the next question. Mark also was asked how to advise a deficit if not focusing on calories.
I'm trying to make sure I understand the question correctly.
So I got an awful lot of questions this week. I talk an awful lot about calories, saying they don't matter. I tell people at the moment that I'm eating quite a lot of food at the moment, and a lot of people they're basically giving me a lot of slack, saying to me, "There's no way you look that lean if you are eating about that amount of food. You're either lying or you're taking something." So a lot of people are saying to me, "Okay, how are you going to get yourself into a deficit?"
And just so everybody knows, Mark is totally the most natural guy on the planet. Like to get him to start taking creatine was a challenge. Yeah, no, he is legit. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. So basically what I say to people is I just say, listen, look at calories as fuel. So you will be going into like a slight deficit when it comes to fuel. But when it comes to overall calories, you're not going to be able to track calories, because my calorie intake from my body weight at the moment, if I was to track calories, because I only weigh I think I'm around 130 at the moment. So if I was to track my calories right now, I'd be on around 70 and 100. If I was on 70 and 100 calories right now, I'd be fucking starving. My body be going catabolic. But because I've built more muscle mass over the years, my bone density has gotten stronger. My skeletal mass has gotten stronger. So that's the reason my body can absorb more calories. So I know for a fact I'm eating way over 4,000 calories at the moment. And if anything, I'm actually looking leaner. So I know when I do go down to my stage weight, I know I'll probably be quite lean. If I was to track calories, I'm probably about 2,600 calories. It remains to be seen, but I'm pretty sure I'll be quite lean enough on around 2,600 calories.
Yeah, you'll be peeled. I'm looking at your sheet right now. You'll be peeled around 2,600 calories, but
and I think it's gonna be easy. Yeah, it's not gonna be as hard as what I was doing before, because we've all been there. We've all done the bleeding cardio sessions. We've all done the 7 days a week, the 6 meals a day, carbohydrates really, really high. And then, yeah, you look good on the outside, but on the inside, you feel like shit. You look like shit as well.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. So I'm definitely not going down that route again this year.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that, really. Just focus on macros. People like Colt and Mark will rightfully adapt them to you if you are a client of theirs. They'd use a tapered approach. You don't need to drop to nothing straight away overnight. At the same time, you don't need to up cardio straight away overnight. Small changes should do the job. In terms of like, if you're not focusing calories and not tracking them, you might just, for example, most of my diet plans, this is an inside little bonus coach's tip here. I actually never include calories on any of my plans that I give out to diets.
Me either.
Colt now does the same.
Yep.
But the same token, I also don't often put macros on it either. I just put out food, because most of us that are doing the carnivore diet are eating ground beef, eggs, chicken thighs. I'll literally say, one standard size chicken thigh, which yields, say 60 grams of meat or whatever it is with the skin, or say raw versus cooked weights. I'll say large egg versus small, all these different things. The other day, a 500-gram pack of beef mince is always going to be 500 grams. And if you're looking at the numbers on the packets all the time and worrying about that, you'll see oftentimes vastly different numbers for the same thing. The labelling legislation allows 20% deviation either side of the amount that's labelled. So this is in most countries, so I'd ignore what's on the label a lot of times. Focus on real whole foods. If you're following the carnivore diet, it's so much easier. That's the way I do it. So, most of my clients will be 500 grams, 80% lean, beef mince raw. Obviously, they'd cook it most of the time, I think. 50 grams of butter, 6 eggs, 30 grams of cheese, cheddar cheese or whatever they seem to like. And that'll be it. The numbers don't really come into it. The numbers are what I look at. Part of my job as a coach is to reduce the anxiety people have when looking at the diet itself. Now, if someone is out to eat, for example, they are perhaps at a restaurant, they don't know what something is, I might then say, have a 10-ounce ribeye or something like that, or I'll give them the numbers and say, try and fit this in for the day. That's the sort of thing I use. It seems to be more appropriate, because what I notice as people start to deviate away from the original diet plan, which is it's intuitively built in such a way that the foods themselves are specific as well. For example, not every pack of beef will be the same as a pack of salmon, assuming the labelled fat and protein content are the same. Because if I know they're sticking to a macro amount, at least what they're looking at the label might be somewhat accurate. So that's kind of the way I approach it. But yeah, it comes down to food at the end of the day. Looking at portions of food, that is going to be the ultimate metric you can use, at least without testing in a lab. That's why I do it.
And then when you look at calories, you can see when you see all these calories on packets, like they're not always accurate. I mean, if you look at, like, say 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories, that could be like, say 8.1, 8.2. I don't know where they came up with this round number of 9 calories. It could be, it's same with 4 calories per gram when it comes to carbohydrates. It could be 3.2, it could be 3.3. So they're never going to be accurate. So that's one thing we definitely need to move away from as well. Also.
Yeah,
good shout.
Yeah, just, like you can bust any calorie label on anything at the store. Just multiply 4 gram. 1 gram is 4 calories for protein. 1 gram is 4 calories for carbs. 1 gram is 9 calories for fat, and it doesn't add up to what's on the label either. So not only is it inaccurate in the first place, but there's a margin of error after that too. And calories don't even apply to the human body because it's not because of the closed system. And I don't know what you and Bart can describe it 10 times better than me, Jonathan. You know where I'm going with that.
And if you look at your energy output as well, like somebody that works on a building site to somebody that works stationary sedentary in an office, you can see the difference. Like one person's energy levels are going to be burning off way more than the other person's. You know what I mean? So everybody's completely different. So just because you see something on YouTube and you're saying like, okay, this guy is eating 2,000 calories, so I need to eat 2,000 calories. No, you need to find out what your lifestyle is like first. What your like Jonathan said, like what's your stress levels like? What's your anxiety like? Are you depressed? Like what's going on in your life first of all, and then work around that first.
Yep.
I need to do a video on this exact topic. So basically, when we're losing fat, guys, we're effectively losing carbons from our body. We're breathing them out. Most of the weight we lose is from breathing. So it doesn't just mean run the treadmill for an hour and you'll breathe a lot, then you'll lose loads of fat. There's also 23 hours left in the day, so what you put into your body from that fuel will also affect the amount of carbons that you exhale. I need to do a video on this to properly explain it in a proper sort of sense, but yeah, that's
let me know when you do, man, please.
Yeah, it'll be a good one. Good 4-minute video. I say 4, probably about 20 odd minutes, but
cool. Hey, we got a new question here. It looks like I wanted to ask you one thing real quick, Jonathan.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Karen. Yeah.
That's all right. Okay. So the way that you explained intuitive eating right now, without your clients even knowing how much protein or how much fat is in the food that they're consuming, that sounds wonderful. But you train competitors too, right? So what happens if you have someone that's okay? So what happens if you have someone that's 8 weeks out from a show? I mean, their own satiety signals are going to lead them to being healthier, and getting down to 3% body fat isn't healthy. So I assume at that point you get a lot more strict, right?
Yeah, so I'd be more strict with it. So there's a deviation I allow for clients, and there'll be lifestyle clients versus competitive athletes. So Colt, I would say to you, today you are hitting 160 grams of protein and 225 grams, whatever it happens to be. The margin of error will be so low that I won't allow you to have that plus or minus 5 or 10 grams sort of thing. Now, when people are following the plans that I do, I prefer them to follow it as close as they can. It's tricky to do. I'd estimate that most people I speak to have an adherence rate of perhaps 80 to 90%. So it's not that high, but then you think not everyone I work with is going to be an elite bodybuilder sort of thing. People live lives, they're social creatures. That's how we are as human beings. So, but yeah, I'd provide more information to that client if they asked for it. If it means that they're more able to stick to the diet more a more adherent kind of fashion, then yeah, I'd give them the numbers. I don't deliberately hold back the numbers in that sense, but it's a case of eat the food on the list, don't overcomplicate it. Let me do the worrying, you know.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I think that's a big. I think that's a
Makes a
big
lot
thing
of
as well, isn't it? It take like overthinking. That's one thing I love explaining to clients as well. Like let me take that overthinking away from you. A lot of people overthink when it comes to like nutrition, training, stress, all that kind of stuff. And I find that the best client is the person that literally just does exactly what you tell them to do. That's it.
I'm quite
100%.
fortunate in that case. For some of my clients, I'm like, mate, I couldn't adhere to this, but not because it's challenging or like irrational or unreasonable to follow, but just because it's like there's gonna be days when I want like 35 grams of cheddar cheese versus 30 grams, you know, like ridiculous things like that. But yeah, do you guys have any questions from your end, from your viewers, Colt? Or
Yeah, you know
done?
what? Okay, I got one here on electrolytes, and I know so we were emailing back and forth about this a little bit, and looks like we may have some different approaches here. But I mean, so what I'm doing, bro, is I'm recommending that everybody that everybody follows their acquires their electrolyte needs if they do need additional electrolytes, because some people just flat out don't. If you've been on the carnivore diet forever without electrolytes, then you probably don't need them. Because we didn't have that many before we started eating carbs primarily as a human species. When we started eating carbs primarily as a human species, then our electrolyte counts go up and our iodine counts go up, and so now we need electrolytes and we need iodine, not because biologically it's 100% necessary, but because we've been used to having these amount of minerals for so long that going from a high carb diet to a carnivore diet can cause some temporary deficiencies there. Also, I found it to be super helpful in peaking for either a show or for a photo shoot. Anytime you want to temporarily enhance your physique, for someone like me that like you know, this is my life, or you know, or like you, or probably not as helpful for like the average person that just wants to be healthier and build more muscle and lose more weight, right? But for someone like this gentleman that does a lot of photo shoots, to get his electrolytes down, I'm thinking is not only going to help him from an aesthetic, from a health point transition to this diet, but also from an aesthetic point too. So we keep those numbers the same and then increase them whenever we do a refeed in direct proportion to how much food and how much water consumption they're adding on their refeed day, which is usually like 30 or 40% higher. I guess specifically he's asking about a supplement that I guess I'm not too familiar what you guys have for supplements over there in terms of electrolytes. We have our go-tos over here, but yeah, I'm just wondering. I guess what I'm just wondering, Jonathan and Mark, is if you guys is if you like are you fans of products like Relight and LMNT and those types of electrolyte supplements, or do you think it's just a losing battle and you should forget about it and just go by intuition?
No, for me, I would keep them in. Like over here, we would have a supplement, but it's very, very hard to get one without any sugar in it. There's only one brand over here it's probably the only one I can think of off the top of my head. But I'm a fan of electrolyte at the moment because I find it at the moment, especially if I'm training or if I'm like working really, really hard, I'm getting brain fog. I might get a little bit of dizziness, so I need that little bit of. No, and when I say a little bit of sugar, like I'm not having much of it. I'll have a little drop, and I'll have like I say a 2-liter bottle of water, and that'll pretty much keep me going for the rest of the day. I may have a little bit again during my workouts. I find having a little bit of electrolytes help me during my workouts, get my little bit more of a pump. I'll add a little bit more salt to them, a little bit of salt also. But yeah, my electrolytes are quite high at the moment. I'm having a good bit now at the moment. I'd say I'm putting it in about 4 or 5 times a day at the moment.
Cool stuff. Yeah. So, Colt asked me this off air, which is a really good question actually, because I've got quite a contrasting view to virtually everyone I speak to online, especially in the carnivore space. So, I mean, I've been on a carnivore diet now for 3 years, and well, no, 3-4 months at this point. I had a 3-4 month gap where I went off the rails and binge ate and just was rubbish, basically. I was pretty useless and just eating crap, to say the least. So I'm probably quite fat adapted in that sense. And that's with the absence of plant-based foods. So I've eaten very little fruits or vegetables in the last few years. Like, I think I've had fruit twice in the last 9-10 months. Vegetables, the seasonings and things I sometimes have, but not very often. And basically what I'm getting at is the less plants you have in your system, the less chances are for you to have issues such as leaky gut, or include foods which are in your diet which are laden in anti-nutrients. Now, a lot of anti-nutrients such as tannins, lectins, even gluten, phytates, oxalates, they can leach particular minerals from your body. So not just the ones that you actually digest and eat, but the ones that are actually in your body inherently. So what you'll find with people in the keto community, where they're including plants still, they're still not quite made that step yet to the carnivore diet. Each their own sort of thing. They'll include the electrolyte products and they'll benefit from it. That's because they're putting more in their system because they're lacking so much from their system. So my argument is, rather than try to add more and more into your body, why not increase the uptake of those individual electrolytes and minerals in your system from the food you're eating? So the way you maximize the uptake is getting rid of the plants that could be problematic to you. You don't drink too much. So you drink enough to stay hydrated, but not too much. You salt your food to taste. I think Colt kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier. And that'll help balance things out. The other thing as well is when you're eating a lot of meat in particular, especially more fresher and less dry-aged meat, you have a higher concentration of taurine in it. And taurine is the main electrolyte regulator of the body. So it means it's going to regulate that particular, I think it's like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like 1-10-5 balance or whatever it is, between sodium. No, it's not that. I think Colt will remind me. I think it's 2-1.
Yeah. So Robert
Sykes.
Sykes.
What it is.
Yeah. So Robert Sykes recommends 2-1. So I just have been rolling with that, and I'm never treating it as gospel, but just kind of use it as a ballpark starting point, and then assess whether either of those levels need to go up or down at all.
That's right. Yeah. So you can almost get away with putting more salt into your diet, but probably not less. The salt will also regulate your electrolyte balance. So how do we know this is true? And I'm not just talking out my backside, basically, is that I've been having in my diet around 2,000 milligrams of potassium each day since I started the carnivore diet. So 2,000 milligrams. And with that 2,000 milligrams of potassium, I've had 200 milligrams of magnesium. And that's through diet alone. Now, sometimes I'll occasionally take a magnesium citrate tablet at night. Not often. That's more so if I've had constipation from painkiller medication that I have to occasionally use. But outside of that, I've not really added anything to my diet in terms of electrolytes in that time. But what I have had in my diet is lots of taurine through the meat I eat. I salt to taste, and the body regulates itself just fine.
Wow.
And the volume of my gut is lesser now than what it used to be. So, for example, right now next to me in my bed, just down here, I'm sat in the bed sort of thing, I've got a cup of water. I think it's got some taurine in it, which is good before bed sort of thing, helps regulate GABA. Now, I'll probably only drink about a quarter of that tonight. That's over the whole night. I wake up in the morning, I'll be a little bit thirsty, but not overly thirsty. Then during the day, I'm also only drinking 2 litres total, and that will include milk, ice if I have it, water, sugar-free squash, or whatever I happen to have that day. So I'm having about 2 litres per day of actual liquid. Because I'm very fat adapted at this point. I can flick between different states quite readily, so I don't have the same dip a lot of people have in the gym. So my training performance is equal to, if not better than, when I was having carbohydrates in my diet. So I think as people become more fat adapted, they require less minerals in their system. The uptake's better. There's less junk going through your system to reduce the uptake, and you can become more intuitive with your body as you understand how much sodium you need and how much water you need to drink. Whilst Robert Sykes is correct about the ratio, your body does regulate that ratio, assuming that you put the right stuff in and listen to your body. So yeah, that's kind of my standpoint, which is it's different to both of you, what you guys think, but that's basically it.
That's probably the most brilliant 10 minutes that we've had on this show, bro. Is that last time? Wow. I mean, no, seriously, that's spectacular. That makes so much sense. The oxalates stripping you of your minerals. Okay, great, got it. Do things like sucralose and artificial sweeteners fall into that category? Like, would that kind of offset your electrolyte balance there too?
They can do. So the way that would work is if your microbiome is upset. So, for example, we know that some people have a higher intolerability to. My stepdad, he can't have saccharin in his diet. I deal with sucralose just fine. But now, if I have erythritol or any of the alcohol sugars, that really upsets my guts. Then I'll suddenly be really thirsty. So my guts will actually get rid of more electrolytes in them.
Yeah.
So it comes more from the standpoint that if your gut's healthy, then your electrolyte balance will be healthy, and you're putting the right nourishment in, basically.
How do you, speaking of Robert Sykes, how do you do on keto bricks with all that just being talked about?
I think it's useful for people that can eat those sort of foods and they're tolerable. I've not really looked at the products properly, so I couldn't really give a proper analysis in that sense. But
Yeah,
people like Colt that need a lot of food.
First ingredient is raw organic cacao butter, and that's that's a very low oxalate food, which is why that's the first ingredient. And then whey protein is after that, grass-fed whey.
Oh, it's pretty similar to my butter bites, and yeah, it's just the only difference is it's animal source fat versus a plant source. It's probably useful if you need a lot of energy in your diet. So, for example, Colt that does loads of activity. Someone that's like I don't know, a long distance runner, God forbid. Someone that spends heaps of energy. Little dig there. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, we're mentally
these
ill
things are
apparently
useful
too because we long distance run. Never mind. Let's not get into that.
Yeah, I think they're just useful things like tools you can use. But for me myself, I don't eat enough to really warrant it. I don't know. It's like it's just a tool, like I keep saying. You know, if you need more food, you can eat that. If you can eat more animal-based foods, even better. That's what I think.
Okay, so for this gentleman being new to the carnivore diet, do you think it would be wise? He's been eating carbs his entire life, and so do you think that it would be wise to continue to recommend the way that I have been recommending it to him, and then after a few weeks, like after he comes back for another consult a month or two later, just say, you know what, how do you feel about cutting back on your electrolytes and seeing if we can, I don't know, revisit this conversation and kind of go more with your intuitive approach. I like that a lot. I love it.
Yeah, I'd probably reduce them slowly. Don't go cold turkey. If he goes and reduces them, then a week later he starts to panic and starts feeling a bit off. Yeah. His heart's racing. He feels weaker in the gym. Then at that point you might add in taurine as a supplement instead, because that is naturally occurring. It's not going to stress the kidneys. It's not going to potentially throw anything else off because your body will regulate its assimilation. It's more natural in terms of putting something in your body to deal with better. So I'd probably add in taurine at that point.
Cool. Taurine's just like CBD. Can't overdo it. Got it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, pretty much. This is not a medical claim, but yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, super helpful. Thanks, bro.
Cool. Is that it for questions on your side, Colt?
Oh, I guess one more thing just to piggyback off of that. Okay, so if you were gonna peak, you, Jonathan, if you were gonna peak for a show now and do a refeed, would you increase your would you have like a higher fat, higher protein meal or whatever, and increase water and your electrolyte levels all in direct proportion?
That's a good question. Yeah, so I'd increase my fat. So say for example the show was on Saturday.
Okay.
I'd increase the fat. Maybe it's quite individual, so I couldn't say like without testing it myself. In prior weeks, but I might increase the fat say Monday or Tuesday. So I might add in 50%. Reassess the look in the physique. Is the physique full or is it still quite flat? It's important to recognise full versus flat, or if someone actually has no muscle on them. So I noticed people before have been supposedly flat, but they just have no muscle. So that sort of indicator to look at. The next thing would be to follow the hunger signals that your body provides. So if you're storing more glycogen, is in the fat that you're taking in is actually being held within the muscle a bit more. So it will go downstream to create more muscle glycogen if you are in a depleted state anyway. We know that because how else do we feel while our workouts? It's fat essentially.
Yeah.
So then at that point, I think, okay, well, it's still quite flat. Keep it 25% raised again the next day. If that next day still flat, nothing's changing, I might increase to 50%. But at that point, your thirst would usually go up, because when you store more glycogen, your horse, glycogen, 1 gram of glucose to 3 grams of water or something like that. So, your thirst will go up. You'll know that straight away. Your salt will probably also go up as well to help take in the extra nourishment, hydration. Right. Then you'd assess the look. So you'd look at the skin feel, so the texture. Is that person getting fat, or is there, they get that like shrink wrap look? You just taper it from then. So you just try and keep it the same. It's very hard to get fat in a few days. Very hard, especially if you're in a ketogenic state.
I think one of the biggest things I'm learning from you, bro, has been to take things one step at a time instead of trying to plan everything out and follow it exactly like it is on paper, because of what makes the most sense. Because for me this last show, and I was like, all right, I've never done a ketogenic bodybuilding show before. All the shows have always been on carbs. So I was like, this is new territory, and I need to follow exactly what I'm doing. And I think reading Robert's book really changed my life, but I'm also a very OCD person that I think I've had to mature past that a bit. And learning from you and Mark has helped me to be able to take things one step at a time, instead of rushing in with an agenda already. Because right now I'm thinking of a practical situation, which is going to be Mark's upcoming show, right? And so should we go in there with a set protocol of, okay, we're going to peak you exactly like this on this day and exactly like that on that day. But I'm liking this idea a lot better now of taking it one meal at a time, and say, okay, how do you feel after this meal? How do you feel after increasing your water? How do you feel after increasing your sodium? Tell me what are you craving? I think those are probably the more kind of conversations we need to have on peak week, huh? Instead of, okay, bro, Monday, this is what your diet looks like, and then Friday, this is exactly what we're doing. That sounds like how most people ruin the physique that they already got in the first place. Because even back when my coach was coaching you through all these different, like we did rapid backloading, we did intentionally spilling over on Wednesday, which is kind of what we found out worked best for me with carbs, was to intentionally spill over on Wednesday before the show, and then just keep it topped off, and then by Friday you're cleaned up, and then you're good and full without any spillover by that point. But it's just different for every single person.
Yeah, that's right. We have our bodies that are innately very biologically dynamic. It's good to have a plan, because I've seen your post, Colt, on Instagram, and I can see, by this week you're going to aim for this, and it's good to have an idea, assuming things are trending the way they are, but things always happen. You'll notice with Mark's prep, as it gets leaner, you'll have to do some pretty weird, drastic things, which is very true with someone when they're first starting getting into shape. Now, as you do more competitions, you become more predictable in a way. Not always, but you can understand what's going to happen as time goes on. You'll have a great time, and I think it'll be a learning curve for all of us. Be able to see what Mark can do on stage and see how he progresses as weeks go on.
He's gonna be diced, man. Yeah, you should see his serratus. Like, it's not even fair. That bear claw muscle between the pecs and the lats. Like when he does this one, bam, that's gonna be a good one. It's not, that pose isn't allowed for men's physique, but we'll figure out a creative way to show the judges your serratus, bro, without making them mad. You can be creative with it.
You do transitions like
exactly
sort of thing.
Yeah, something like that. Especially when they're calling out different poses too. That's when you want to grab their attention. So like that would be the opportunity to do it. You're facing the front, and then when they say face the back, that's when, if I were you, Mark, I would show my serratus like at some point like that, and then twist around to the back, and then get into your back pose so that the judges see you, and you call their attention to you before you even get into that pose.
I always do that in a pose down on stage. So
me too.
I notice no one ever has like hamstrings or calves on stage, or glutes usually. So I literally face the rear. I look to my left, look to the right of the guys next to me in the pose down, and I point at my calves and spike my calf, and I'm like, all right, that's all right then. Then just smile and walk off.
my signature thing is flopping my my right quad around. That's the more detailed quad, and so I'll
Oh,
flop it and then punch it and then flex it when I punch it. It's just, I mean, it's so dumb and dramatic and cheesy, but it's freaking funny, man. Like at the end of the day, we're standing in front
fun.
of a group
Yeah.
of people. We're tan, we look African American, and we're in our underwear. You know, you got to have fun with it.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. Do you have time for one last question, or do you think we should wrap this up?
So this, yeah, I guess we already kind of beat a dead horse on the on the electrolytes and everything. I think it's pretty much all that I got that I couldn't figure out.
Yeah, I'll look for the chat and see if there's anything we've not yet covered.
Thanks everybody for joining. Oh no, we got one here that we totally missed. A couple of them. I'll just read it, okay?
Sure, yeah.
Does building muscle in arms, legs, and already leaner areas stretch skin out in stomach area, or is it area specific? So this person wants to lose belly fat. Yeah, that question. When they excuse me, they're trying to lose loose belly skin by filling out the rest of their muscle bellies overall, wondering if that'll make their skin tighter, generally speaking, and make their abs more visible. I think that's what this person is asking.
Yeah, I think so.
What do you think? Do you think it works that way?
I think it's one of those questions, how long is a piece of string? You know, some people will have dramatic weight gain and weight loss, and they might be able to suck it all back in and look great. Other people, maybe not. You know, I've still got stretch marks around my glutes, which are so faint and faded now, but my muscle around it has built up, so it's not a visual thing anymore. It's not something which you'd see as unattractive or unappealing in terms of like a bodybuilding sense. But yeah, I don't think we can really give an accurate answer for that sort of question, unfortunately.
That's a really cool idea. I love the idea. It's interesting. The same person. I think this would be a good one to wrap up with. So the same person would like to ask any breathing techniques you'd recommend outside of training. We all do deep breathing, right? I mean, that's something that we all do in our lives to meditate and relax. Why don't we all just share how we do it? And we can wrap up with that.
Jonathan, I tend to lie or sit upright and just breathe in deeply and breathe out deeply. I think the amount I use like 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, but I'm not too routined about it. It's more something that I do when I'm conscious I'm heavy breathing, you know?
Yeah, I'd be the same. Just focus on long breaths. Listen to your heart rate. That's what I'd be doing. Like, just close your eyes. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. Control the heart. Put yourself into a nice, relaxed state. Everything else will look after itself.
Good deal. Here's a fun one to try. The book Wim Hof Method by Wim Hof has a lot of really, really good breathing exercise, and so this is one of my favorite books on my shelf. Actually, has been this one. I guess I'm gonna make a statement about my faith, and if you share my faith, great. If you don't, then you probably don't care. But I'm not a fan of the spiritual things that he gets into. But the actual breathing exercises themselves, from a health standpoint, freaking awesome. So I've been doing those a lot. One of my favorite ones is to actually lay at the bottom of a pool and exhale as much as I can. I mean, I guess it might be dangerous. So like, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say this, or send like a liability waiver or something. But I don't know. I'm just saying this is what I do. I'm not saying to do this. All right. But I lay down at the bottom of the pool at the gym and exhale all of my air, and I just feel amazing. Like I just feel weightless, and like all my tight muscles, my entire body. I feel a real deep sense of peace. I say a quick little prayer when I'm down there. Zechariah 4:6 and Ezekiel 37 verse 5. Those are two really powerful verses on breath. The original Hebrew word isn't exactly the same, but it can be translated. It is the same, and it can be translated either breath or spirit. So I just kind of sit down and meditate on those two pieces of scriptures for as long as I can. And I do that probably twice or three times after a workout at the gym if I have time for it. Days like today, I don't want to be late for a meeting like this, and so couldn't really happen today. But it's almost become part of my biological clock to where that deep breathing exercise just kind of shifts. It puts a bookend on the end of the workout, and then I'm ready to go the rest of the day. I'm super relaxed and chill. Fun stuff. I think that's all we got today.
Good stuff. Cheers for that, Colt. Good answer.
Cool. All right.
Come on.
Everybody, you can find Jonathan on Instagram at what, sir?
Composition_consultant.
Cool. And Mark Ennis?
You can find me on Fitness Beyond Time.
Cool. And I'm just Colt Milton. There you go. Nothing special.
Easy peasy. Cheers, guys.
Thanks everybody for joining.
Simple.
Next week, same time.
Thanks.
We're here.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.